As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Well, good morning. And if you missed the fourth GOP debate, unlike the first three, you actually missed a really good debate. This was, I think, the most fiery debate. It definitely had the most clash. There were only four candidates on the stage: Governor Ron DeSantis, Vivek Ramaswamy, Nikki Haley, and Chris Christie. And the moderators were Megyn Kelly and then two other women. It was hosted on News Nation. I watched on Rumble. Very interesting that Rumble, the live stream, actually glitched the one moment and just for the duration that Megyn Kelly was asking the questions about COVID response. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. But if you were watching on Rumble and you missed Governor DeSantis's response on needing a reckoning on COVID, you absolutely have to listen to this. This is Cut 7.
We need a reckoning for what this government did during COVID-19. That includes the mRNA shots. They put it out. It was experimental. People wanted it. Then the government started trying to mandate it, to say you don't have a right to put food on your table if you don't take an mRNA shot that was under emergency use. They tried to take nurses away. Now, in Florida, we blocked that. We provided protections for everybody so that they wouldn't lose their job. You also have the FDA approving an mRNA shot for 6-month-old babies. There was no data to support that. They're doing it because big pharma will make money. So I'm going to go in there, CDC, NIH, FDA. We're going to clean house. There's going to be a reckoning because right now nobody's been held accountable for any of the damage. And they're going to try to do it again. When I'm president, this will never happen to our country ever again.
Thanks. That was a solid response. And every candidate, I don't care what party you're from, and I don't care who anybody supports who's listening to this show, that needs to be the response on COVID. The fact that the government thought that it could mandate an experimental vaccine and then just fast track it and say, okay, now the FDA approves it, even though we haven't done any of this kind of testing, and you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your livelihood, you're going to lose other benefits if you don't take it, and we are going to compel you to forcibly inject yourself with this experimental thing that you don't even want. And we think that in this country, the government has the right to do that is shameful. There does need to be a reckoning. That was just one of Governor DeSantis's best responses, and I think that he was the clear and runaway winner. Obviously, I do support Governor DeSantis, and everyone listening knows that, but I also have been critical of him when I thought criticism was warranted, and I try to be as objective as possible in terms of just looking at how he could have performed, how other candidates could perform. And often I get a lot of the pushback when I actually laud other people on stage. Like, for example, I thought Vivek Ramaswamy spoke very uncomfortable truth last night. I thought he did a phenomenal job as usual. He's an excellent speaker. And so then people are like, oh, you're flip-flopping back and forth and you're supporting too many people. And I'm going, no, I'm just saying I'm happy when the people who are running as conservatives actually sound like conservatives, and I will give them props for that, and I will say I like what you do, because we don't know who the winner of the GOP primary is going to be right now. We don't know who is going to eventually face whoever the Democrats put up, and so even though we can all have different opinions over who the best conservative candidate should be, we should hope that everybody running under a conservative ticket is actually genuinely conservative. And there was one candidate in particular on stage last night that just got absolutely crushed and destroyed for not really being a conservative, and that was Nikki Haley. And this was just a phenomenal takedown from Vivek Ramaswamy for Nikki Haley on Ukraine, and not even knowing the provinces of Ukraine, when she had just given this response about how, yes, America should continue to fund Ukraine, and we need to go in there and we need to make sure that Ukraine wins. And she's giving all of these sort of talking points, platitudes. Vivek responded with fire and called her out and said, "You don't even know what you're talking about." This was absolutely epic. I thought it was one of the best moments of the night. This is cut one.
Hi, man. So foreign policy experience is not the same as foreign policy wisdom. I want everybody at home to note that I was the first person to say we need a reasonable peace deal in Ukraine. Now a lot of the neocons are quietly coming along to that position, with the exceptions of Nikki Haley and Joe Biden, who still support this, what I believe is pointless war in Ukraine. And I think those with foreign policy experience, one thing that Joe Biden and Nikki Haley have in common is that neither of them could even state for you 3 provinces in eastern Ukraine that they want to send our troops to actually fight for. Look at that. This is what I want people to understand. These people have, I mean, she has no idea what the names of those provinces are, but she wants to send our sons and daughters and our troops and our military equipment to go fight it. So reject this myth that they've been selling you, that somebody had a cup of coffee stint at the UN and then makes $8 million after, has real foreign policy experience. It takes an outsider to see this through. Look at the blank expression. She doesn't know the names of the provinces that she wants to actually fight for. And there's her puppet masters right there, the donors right there that are playing her like the puppet masters.
Hold on.
This was just absolutely brutal. And I know that everyone who's listening to this is listening just the audio version. Go back and look at Nikki Haley's expression when they do the split screen and Vivek Ramaswamy is calling her out. If she actually knew, that would be the moment when you jump in and you give the names of like 5 provinces of Ukraine, if you actually know it, so that she could have easily just shut him down. But she sat there and got this real, like genuinely embarrassed look on her face. I'm convinced she doesn't know. And she might be looking it up or having her staff tweet it out later. I don't think she's even responded to that. And when she was asked if she wants to respond to a few of the things that Vivek was calling her out on, she just said, that's not even worth a response. That's when you know that she doesn't have a response, because that's the whole point of a debate, is to have that kind of clash and to respond with substance. And so Chris Christie had to jump in, and you heard him in the last few moments of that clip trying to kind of jump in and go, just enough. And he jumped in and said, I've known Nikki Haley for 12 years and you're just trying to bash her character and all this other stuff. But he didn't give any of the names. And so Vivek jumped right back in and said, okay, what we learned from that lengthy answer is that Chris Christie doesn't know either. And it was a beautiful moment to say, we need to, as voters and as conservatives, really genuinely look for the substance over just the rhetoric. Because when you have candidates who, and right now, everybody's saying that Trump is, 40, 60 points ahead, whatever. I never believe the polls. I never believed them in any prior election, and clearly no one should have believed them in 2016. And yet, everybody on the Trump camp side keeps touting these polls as if that actually matters. I think that polls are a bandwagon fallacy. It's trying to say, look, he's so far ahead, nobody can possibly catch him. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what can change. I think a lot has changed. I think a lot of people are genuinely looking for a different alternative to Donald Trump. They're concerned for a variety of reasons. I also think that Governor DeSantis and Vivek Ramaswamy are doing incredibly well. I think that last night was the best debate that Ron DeSantis had, and you're seeing the base of conservative Americans who genuinely want change in this country, and not to go backwards in terms of let's get back to the Constitution. A lot of the conservative rhetoric sometimes sounds like we want to go back to the past. We want to get back to the founding principles of America. And Governor DeSantis said that so well in his closing when he said that the point and the centerpiece of American government needs to be the Constitution. And I thought that he said that so incredibly well when he said all of this comes down to the U.S. Constitution, making sure we follow the principles of limited government. That's what conservatives genuinely want in this country. And we need to get past all of the particular clash in terms of, everybody's going to have their opinion, because it's almost like a sporting event when we watch these debates, because everybody goes in with a bias. I go in with a bias, right? Like, I want the people that I support to do well, but overall we should want our entire team, if we are conservative, to do well, and we should want to kind of flesh out those who don't genuinely have a conservative position, so that they don't eventually get the nomination. And I would now, especially after last night, and even prior to last night, but especially after last night, put Nikki Haley squarely in that category. And she has gotten a lot of pushback against the Koch brothers and a lot of these other establishment organizations that have been funding her. And funds, sometimes you're tied to that as a candidate. Not always the case, but really it comes down to policy. And she just did not have good policy. And DeSantis absolutely took her down on the clash over transgender issues and the clash over bathroom bills. And this is cut 4. Listen to this.
And this shows how hypocritical Ron continues to be. When he was running for governor and they asked him about that, he said he didn't think bathroom bills were a good use of his time. You can go look that up.
I signed a bathroom bill in Florida, so that's obviously not true.
So the idea that you would say that I was against that.
You didn't. You killed it. I signed it. I stood up for little girls. You didn't do it. And there was this going on. I was actually just in South Carolina. Some of the legislators told me at the time there were boys going into the girls. That's the whole reason why they did it.
No.
And so they say when she does that explanation that doesn't hold water. And this is the upstate of South Carolina.
Ron,
I signed the bill. I protected the girls.
Do you know South Carolinians?
She did not do it.
Do you know
I know
South Carolinians? Because South Carolina.
See, and that's how you respond in actual real time to calling out lies of your opponent. When he says, I signed it, you didn't. I stood up for little girls. I protected little girls. You didn't. And Governor DeSantis also said this, that was, I think, his best moment. And again, he had so many, but one of the best moments of the night, talking about the transgender issues and the minor surgeries for kids. And when Nikki Haley had been asked a question about why she previously said, well, it should be up to parents, and categorizes castrating children under the auspices of parental rights. This is what Governor DeSantis had to say. This is cut 6.
As a parent, you do not have the right to abuse your kids. This is cutting off their genitals. This is mutilating these minors. These are irreversible procedures. And this is something that other countries in Europe, like Sweden, once they started doing it, they saw it did incalculable damage. They've shut it down. I signed legislation in Florida banning the mutilation of minors because it is wrong. We cannot allow this to happen in this country. And I know Chris disagrees with me, and I think he has an honest position. Nikki disagrees with me. She opposes the bill that we did to ban that. She said law shouldn't get involved with it. You said the law shouldn't get involved with it. She also, though, I think, and this flows from what she did as governor of South Carolina, they had a bill to try to say that men shouldn't go into girls' bathrooms. And she killed that bill, and she bragged that she killed that bill. Even to this day, she bragged that. I don't think men should be going into little girls' bathrooms. I think it's wrong, and I think we have every right to protect them from that.
That was a great response. And so my debate recap, and we're going to be talking about this more on the next segment with our good friend Steve Deace, but the debate recap that I posted was Ron DeSantis was the clear and runaway winner. The GOP could not ask for a better, more solid conservative candidate who understands and implements and racks up wins. Vivek Ramaswamy spoke uncomfortable truth. Nikki Haley was absolutely crushed and destroyed. Chris Christie rightly called out Donald Trump for running a campaign on retribution, but while he himself is running a campaign on retribution against Donald Trump. So we'll be right back with more debate analysis here on Jenna Ellis in the Morning. With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health
is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
There's no mystery to what he wants to do. He started off his campaign by saying, "I am your retribution." 8 years ago, he said, "I am your voice." This is an angry, bitter man who now wants to be back as president because he wants to exact retribution on anyone who has disagreed with him, anyone who has tried to hold him to account for his own conduct. And every one of these policies that he's talking about are about pursuing a plan of retribution.
That was Chris Christie on Donald Trump, who did not make an appearance in the fourth debate, as he has not in any of the three prior debates. So joining me now for more analysis and his take is our good friend Steve Deace, host of the Blaze TV, very popular show, and the executive producer of the Nefarious movie, and most importantly, a very sincere and dedicated conservative Christian who aligns with values voters and rightly, consistently points out that we need to get back to the biblical worldview of American government. So Steve, you and I were kind of going back and forth on social media and some other stuff watching this debate last night. Your overall thoughts on winners, losers, and the strongest moments?
I think the big winner is the Republican base. Jenna, I think that News Nation really for the first time provided a format that made sure the questions got asked the base cares about. And then it permitted, and Megyn Kelly, I thought, really helped to spearhead this. It permitted an environment the Republican Party does everything it can possibly do to avoid. If you go back to the Family Leadership Summit we had here in Iowa in July, Tucker Carlson was given an opportunity to directly question the candidates from the right. The GOP does not like its candidates critiqued from the right because a lot of times the people that it would prefer wins fall apart. They can't handle it because they're really, they may come out from us, but they're not of us. And so in this case, Megyn indirectly, by the framing of the questions as the spearhead moderator, permitted that to occur. Almost all of the conversation last night was from the right. You were either speaking from the right or being critiqued from the right. And I think that finally we got a conversation that I think much of the base wanted to have on a lot of these issues. And not surprisingly, Vivek and DeSantis shined in that environment. It was tailor-made for them. Not surprisingly, Nikki Haley, who is a skilled politician and coming from South Carolina, knows how to speak some level of conservative ease when it's on shallow talking points. But the minute she stopped talking and other people started talking to her and about her, she completely collapsed. She could not hold up to any level of vetting or scrutiny on any level whatsoever. And at one point, basically kind of just gave up. And the so-called strong woman in the race needed Chris Christie, the big, strong man there, to come to her aid at the end. I am woman, hear me roar. And I think that's a service, frankly, to all right-leaning voters, was to end this fascination with her. I just never took her seriously because I'm on the ground in Iowa, and I don't take her organizational presence seriously. But it's clear, at least on a higher level, she was having some kind of moment here now as the Kasich Rubio wing of the party kind of was starting to come together behind her. And from my perspective as a DeSantis guy, what needed to happen is the Rubio part of that coalition that actually does have some real conservative principles needed to be detached from Haley to see that she really has none, and leaving her with just the Kasich wing of the party. And I think that absolutely occurred last night. It was a dreadful night for her. And therefore, if you're any form of a conservative, MAGA, America First Christian voter, a good night for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great analysis that gets to the heart of why this debate, to me, was the best out of the four. And I loved that Megyn Kelly and the other moderators allowed a little bit of that back and forth that you don't see on some of the other debates, where the candidates were able to directly question each other and to push back. And when Vivek Ramaswamy actually called out Nikki Haley and said, "You don't even know the 3 provinces in Ukraine that you want to send our sons and daughters to," she had no response. And it was so clearly evident. And then the other great moment, he held up that notepad that said, "Here's my notes, Nikki Haley equals corruption." And it was an amazing takedown.
Totally agree. I think that both in the issues that are their particular wheelhouse at this moment in their evolutions as candidates, and when you look at the broader issues about the so-called, whether we want to call it the swamp, the deep state, whatever the nomenclature of the moment for it is, this is right in Vivek's wheelhouse. And as a millennial who has really no generational nostalgic tie to any of that era of Americana whatsoever, and was kind of born into a country where, in his generation's perspective, those sorts of elements are why they may not have a future. He absolutely destroyed Nikki on that. I mean, I literally cheered him from my chair when he was taking her down on Ukraine, as you pointed out. And then if you are your more traditional, boomer, Gen Xer, conservative that either grew up in the Reagan era or heard about it from your parents and grandparents, as you were growing up, the broader themes of Western civilization and its understanding of the world, which is basically, Western civilization is essentially a euphemism for a biblical worldview, and a governmental manifestation of that, or a societal manifestation of that. I mean, I think on those broader themes, Ron DeSantis shined. I mean, when he looked at her and said, "Hey, I signed the bills that you wouldn't," particularly on defending women and banning gender mutilation. Really, he completely ended her. I think maybe the most underrated moment last night, though, Jenna, is when DeSantis talked about the broader problems of mass migration, that Western civilization is essentially mass migrating its way out of a civilization by importing worldviews that are hostile to its traditions and its heritage. That is the first time I think I have ever heard a national candidate say that on a national stage. Trump obviously breached a lot of seals on immigration, particularly as he was talking, though, about Mexico and the kinds of people that were coming across our southern border. But this is the first time I can remember somebody on a national stage talking about the broader implications of just mass migration in total, of any form, legal or illegal, when you're importing a bunch of worldviews that are anathema to your own, as we just saw what happened in Ireland here a couple of weeks back. So I thought that was a very underrated moment in this debate. And I think that also speaks to the environment crafted by Megyn and the moderators, that it was sort of it was not a no-go zone to actually go there. And Megyn, we've had 4 debates. This is the first time Operation Warp Speed was actually addressed formally as a question in the debate, which just goes to show that a lot of this has either been, I was at the NBC debate in Miami. It was very professionally done. They did a good job, but it was from their vantage point, which is what the RNC wants. The other debates, the Fox debate at the Reagan Library, was a complete crap show because Fox thinks its role is to control the Republican base and dictate who its candidates are going to be. In this case, we just had an actual debate.
So well said. And, Fox is pretty much the press room of the RNC. So they're going to only frame those questions that Ronna McDaniel prefers and the overall scope of the Republican Party. And I think you're right, absolutely, that Governor DeSantis's responses went to worldview and went to the foundation of the American Constitution. And you saw that in his closing as well, when he talked about what his administration would look like, where he would draw from in terms of former presidents. And also when he said that the Constitution needs to be the centerpiece of American government. He understands all of these policies policy issues, every single topic. What I thought he did so brilliantly last night was to bring all of those back to worldview and to Western civilization, but also to American foundation under the Constitution. And he did that really, really well in his closing. And I thought that contrast between him and, say, Nikki Haley and even Chris Christie, who's just running on retribution against Donald Trump, which, you know, he had some quips and some one-liners that maybe were helpful, but really didn't get to his own viewpoints, and Nikki Haley's viewpoint in Worldview was very clear. So when we had this conversation, particularly about the reckoning on COVID, how important do you think it should be and maybe is for voters, especially coming up with the Iowa caucus only 6 weeks away, that Donald Trump was not on that stage answering for his own Operation Warp Speed and his own administrative response on COVID?
Well, there's two things you talked about there I want to address. Let's talk about the second one first, because that'll be the quicker response. I think that is one of the main reasons that this is a race in Iowa. And, you know, I've gone through on my show many times as someone who has done professional polling, how the methodologies of many of these polls just don't stand up to the scrutiny of the natural laws of mathematics, let alone political science. But I do think they do probably articulate a general mood. Trump has some kind of a comfortable lead here, not insurmountable. DeSantis is the clear second, and he needed to make sure he could consolidate. A majority of Republican caucus voters in Iowa do not want Trump as the nominee. And so you've got to make sure you don't split that lane so that Trump wins with, say, 38 or 42% by plurality. And so the last month or so that DeSantis has gone a long way towards that, from the Reynolds endorsement, the Vanderplots endorsement, what he did to Gavin Newsom last week, and now this performance. And so these last 39 days in Iowa, I think, are going to be very fun here now down the stretch. As to the first point you made, you know I love my biblical analogies. DeSantis is basically a King Josiah-like figure. And if you know that story, he was probably the last great king of Israel. The prophet Hilkiah comes to him as he's cleaning out the temple and says, hey, I found this thing we've been ignoring for the last generation or two, and it's the Bible. And according to rabbinic tradition, it's the book of Deuteronomy that he finds. And this leads to great revival when they realize they're not doing what they were founded to do as a nation. And that's kind of what DeSantis represents in a civic sense, in an Americana sense. When he's talking about restoring the Constitution as the centerpiece of our social compact, that's very much what Josiah was talking about in his time when he led a revival of Israel. And that's what DeSantis is trying to lead in his own way, is an American revival. The advantage that Josiah has is he is king. And so if his heart can be reached, then he can, on his own, unilaterally act in a way that reaches the heart of the people. And he led a great revival. He was the last king to go into the high places and even tore down the Asherah poles. Well, in this case, we don't have kings. And so DeSantis has to do this as president. And you're up against two difficult, the reality is if we as a people were capable of instantly responding to what he is pointing out, he wouldn't have to be pointing it out. He has to point it out because we're not. We've departed from that. We're like the people of Israel in Josiah's time. And then there's this other pull of gravity here, which is I feel like I can't abandon Trump because of the persecution and the lawfare they're doing to him, even if it means we lose another election that we can't possibly afford to lose. And so he's always had this difficulty of figuring out what is that message that gets that across, that threads that needle, and it takes time. I watched Trump closely in his first run. Why? Because I was one of the first people he ever offered a job to. I mean, he came and tried to recruit me when most people thought he was not even going to run. Then I was strategist on the campaign that went head-to-head against him. And it took 6 months for Trump to craft the MAGA message that made him a force of nature. We're over about 6 months into the DeSantis campaign now, and now he has settled in. He has found his rhythm. He has figured out his message and how to articulate it. And he's had a string of big hits here in the last month. What we need to find out now, and Iowa is the only place that matters right now. It's its own self-contained incubator. Opinions of people who are polled in Wyoming, California, even where you are in Mississippi, there where they are irrelevant. The only opinions that matter are the around 200,000 Iowans that are going to go to the polls here in 39 days. And what we need to find out now, these final 39 days, is how many of those people are truly still undecided and movable, because DeSantis does now have the message. He's always had the organization, to move them. And so I think this is going to be very fun and very interesting down the stretch. You can see Trump is reinvesting in our state financially after ignoring it for many, many months. I think on the other side there, they clearly sense that there's a consolidating going on behind DeSantis in the non-Trump lane. So, I've always just wanted these two guys, who I think are both alphas and both titans in their own way. I've always wanted us this whole year to have an environment where we put them in a steel cage match, let them duke it out. And if if David is still too small to wear Saul's armor, then we go with Saul. But that would create the best nominee for the time in which we have. We've been denied that environment for several reasons. Some of it's Trump's fault. Some of it, a lot of it, the fault of those who are trying to basically end his family and put him in prison. But now I think we're going to finally get that environment here, sort of, in these last 39 days. These two guys here in Iowa are going to really go at it on the campaign trail.
And I think that's excellent analysis, Steve. And yet you see a lot of people who are Trump supporters saying, this is over, this is done. We don't even want to have this conversation because look at the polls, and that's all that they say.
When you go from count every vote, they stole the election, to don't count the votes, you're not helping yourself with that. Get out of here with that. All right. That's weak. And that kind of just feeds everything Chris Christie doesn't like about Trump is almost everything about him I do. Okay. I just don't think Trump will I don't think Trump will get angry. I don't think he'll get vengeful. I don't think he'll be retributive. Well, we saw all that. I watched him surrender his presidency to Anthony Fauci and thus the country and hide from George Floyd protesters rather than sending the military out to get rid of these people and do what must be done. I watched him govern while Chaz was created. I don't think he'll do the stuff that Christie talks about. But when you and your spokespeople go out there and say things like, let's end this before people vote, understand you are actually feeding the narrative against you that kills you with a lot of independent voters that you're going to need later in a general election. Don't do stuff like that. Just win.
Yeah, absolutely. And to say somehow that we should have this kind of coronation or that the polls dictate who wins, I mean, that was the exact inverse argument that everybody said when in the aftermath of 2020, when they were saying, well, it's not the news media, it's not the polls that determine the winner, it's the actual votes. And so you're absolutely right that they're undermining everything that hopefully every American and conservative stands for, which is election integrity, to say that we need to have a free and fair primary as well. And to condemn Governor DeSantis as some kind of traitor, to say that he's running in this election, is absolutely antithetical to our process and to basic rational thought. I mean, I think that is the worst possible argument. There's some good arguments, and there are people that I know that are very sincere, dedicated Christian conservatives that support Trump, and that's fine. Support him if he's your preferred candidate, but have actual reasons, not just this, well, DeSantis is disloyal, it's not his time, he's down by 50 points. None of those arguments are actually meritorious. And that's also, Steve Deace, what I don't like to see as well. I want to see us all have a healthy primary, not all of these personal attacks. And what we saw from the debate stage last night, I genuinely wish that Donald Trump had been on that debate stage, because I would have loved to hear his responses to some of those questions about the genital mutilation, the bathroom bills, LGBT stuff, the COVID response, a mass migration. I mean, all of this stuff, I'd love to know his positions, not just his rally rhetoric. But really appreciate, Steve Deace, as always, your comments and your commentary. We'll look forward to Iowa and having you on again soon as we get closer.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
My friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help you get the best night's sleep of your life. He didn't stop at the pillow. Mike also created the Giza Dream bed sheets. I have them. I love them. These sheets look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep, which is crucial for our overall health. Mike found the world's best cotton called Giza. It's ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's latest deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets marketing prices down as low as $29.98, depending on the size. So go to mypillow.com and click on the radio podcast square and use promo code Jenna, Jenna. There, you'll find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and so much more. I have all of this. I love it. Everything from MyPillow and also mystore.com, you can use promo code Jenna. So go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna, and also mystore.com. And remember, use the promo code Jenna.